It was sobering and yet so inspiring to explore the avenue of the righteous among the nations and see the names of those Gentiles who risked their lives to protect the Jewish people. Israel paid such a high price to become a nation, and even after becoming a nation, they continued to pay a high price to defend the only tiny piece of our planet they have ever truly called home.
So in 1948, Israel is reborn in a day. And then, there's a huge fight to sort of establish control of this new state. But when all the dust settles, Jerusalem is not in Jewish hands. Why is what happens in 1967 so important for the Jewish people?
So, the original impetus, the European impetus to create a Jewish state begins with the end of World War I, really, and different programs and plans. What happens, without going through the whole story, is initially Israel was supposed to be huge, 3 times the size of what it is today, even with those territories that are disputed. By the time we get to Eve of 1948, the British have taken the remaining 25%, which in violation of the agreements they signed internationally, created Transjordan or whatever, and wanted to subdivide that. So the Jews were going to end up with 15% of that. It was basically an impossible little pieces of, little territory. The Jewish population accepted it, the Arabs rejected it. So when the British finally pull out on May 14, 1940, Israel declares itself a state, 6 Arab armies declare war and invade. We should have lost that war. It was 45 million Arabs against 600,000 Jews. It's Israel's longest war, over a year. 1% of the population is killed. As a consequence of that, East Jerusalem, which includes the Old City, is lost to the Jordanian Legion, which will itself illegally occupy a huge chunk of real estate, which wasn't supposed to be part of Jordan. They're on the other side of the Jordan River for 19 years. And Egypt will take the Gaza Strip. Neither of those, according to any international agreements, even the latter ones, are supposed to be part of those 2 countries. In 1967, this time only 3 Arab armies tried to destroy Israel. It's Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. And in 6 days, what is arguably one of the most miraculous victories in human history, Israel would triple its territory and completely destroy 3 Arab armies. And for the first time in 2,000 years, since the Roman destruction of Jerusalem, and even then we didn't have sovereignty over Israel, we were a puppet state. But the first time in 2,000 years, Jerusalem is in the hands of the Jewish people. The Temple Mount is in the hands of the Jewish people. And we have a unified state now with everything that's within the biblical boundaries, more or less, are now more or less back within the hands of the Jewish people. Most importantly, the biblical heartland, which is ironically what's called the West Bank. I never use that term because they say from the river to the sea, which is from the Jordan to the Mediterranean, Palestine will be free. But that piece of real estate looks like a giant figure 8, which included Jerusalem and everything north and south. That is, if you take a Bible and you read where all the stories are taking place, it's not in Tel Aviv.
Right.
It's in Hebron. It's in Samaria. It's in these places that, and so that is finally back. And that, by the way, gives impetus to the birth of what's called the Gush Emunim. Gush is a cluster of believers. The settlement movement is a religious messianic movement that is all about, now that God has given us this miracle. 48 was a miracle. We're going to have, in a few days, Yom Yerushalayim coming up, Jerusalem Day. That's an even bigger miracle. Clearly, the process is moving towards its final culmination. We're just missing the Messiah and the temple being rebuilt, so it leads to the settler movement, but it gives, amongst the Christian population, worldwide, they're seeing it, yet another thing you could check off. That shouldn't have happened, Jews shouldn't be here, but they're back. Jewish state is reborn. In the ashes of the Holocaust, one of every 3 Jews is murdered and survives a 1-year-long war against 45 million Arabs when they had no weapons.
Yeah.
State of Israel prospers, God says it, you'll shoot forth your branches and bear your fruit by people, your return is close at hand. That's what Ezekiel says, behold, I will return to you and you'll be tilled and sown, I'll multiply men upon you, the entire family of Israel. Look, it's all coming true.
Yeah.
Jerusalem reunited, land blooming, Jews coming back. In 1900, 0.5% of the Jews in the world live in Israel. Today, at least 50% of the Jews in the world live in Israel.
Yeah.
That's 11. So that's a 1,100% increase. So people reading the Bible, whether they're Jewish or not. As a matter of fact, I think more not numerically, obviously, there's a lot more non-Jews, but percentage-wise, I think a lot more Christians reading the Bible see the messianic side of it than a lot of secular Jews see it.
Right.